It's hard to watch, read, or listen to any news without hearing something about problems at America's southern border. Carolina Journal's editor-in-chief, Donna King, didn't just want to hear about what was going on. She wanted to get a firsthand look. She is down at the southern border and joins us now. Donna, first of all, tell us, how'd you end up on a trip to America's southern border?
This has really been interesting, Mitch. I'm down here on a trip that is part of Americans for Prosperity's project on the southern border. They've got a group of lawmakers here. They've got reporters, activists, all on this trip. They wanted us all to see what was happening with our own eyes. You know, we've all seen all kinds of reporter coverage and news and sometimes not enough news about what's happening down here. So they wanted us to see it. We had interesting meetings this morning with Border Patrol agents in this group area called McAllen, Texas. What you see behind me is, the wall. We've talked a lot about it. It's been polarizing. There's about 140 miles of the wall through this region that is unfinished. So what they were telling us is that, first of all, they're getting about 2,000 migrants coming across a day. Of course, in the U.S., we allow in about 2 million a year. They're getting 2,000 a day. This wall that you see behind me was actually started by George W. Bush. It was continued under the Obama administration. It was paused, and it was continued, of course, under Trump as well. It was paused under the Biden administration, and Governor Abbott has continued it. And so you see all this construction happening behind me. They are continuing to build this wall today, but they say, they can only go so far. You can see where it's ending, right down the way here, a few yards away, because they just don't have the clearance and the materials to keep it going.
Now we can see a great shot that you have of the wall. Looks like it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Are you in a spot where, if you aren't right
Sure.
at the wall, you'd see basically just a bunch of trees and underbrush?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because right over here is a trailer park resort. It's interesting because I always had this vision that I don't know if you can hear me because of all the construction, but I always had this vision that on one side was Mexico and on one side was the United States. That's not the case. The wall is actually a mile inland, more in some areas, because if folks were to come all the way to the wall, they're on American soil. So it really is interesting. The biggest thing that I have really taken away from this trip and this experience is the number of children who have been brought over this year and in the last 2 or 3 years. Roughly, former Congressman Flores was traveling with us as well. She says about 85,000 kids are unaccounted for at this point. So, for example, they would come over without a caretaker, and someone would pick them up, give them a phone number or an email address or physical address of where they're going to be for their court date, and then they never hear from them again, and that address doesn't exist or the phone number is disconnected. She said that amounts to about 85,000 kids. That is the biggest humanitarian crisis that I can think of. History will really look back on this time and how we responded, and particularly when you talk about that many kids unaccounted for.
We all hear about the wall, but very few of us and the border, and very few of us actually get to see what's happening. What surprised you most about what you've either seen or heard?
Sure. The biggest thing that has surprised me most is how much of it is unfinished. There are big sections that were just sort of abandoned, and there's materials laying where the construction should happen. But I think another big surprising part was we had a long meeting with Border Patrol agents and what some of their experiences are. Something like 75% of their workday is spent in humanitarian relief, setting broken arms, delivering babies, all kinds of things. It's not as much, chasing down people that I picture, running through here. We went to the Rio Grande River just a little bit ago, and it was a water treatment plant. They had to put grates in the water because there were so many bodies that they, didn't want them to get caught up in the pumps of the water treatment plant. It is really a horrific scene. The area where we were was a major passage of drug cartels, moving drugs back and forth across this very narrow strip of water. And they said that they really don't have enough people. They literally do not have enough border agents to cover the amount of ground that they have to. So they rely heavily on AI, which is attached to these walls. So whether the walls keep people out or not, they really are relying on the technology that they're using to keep control of the border. So Immigration policy is something we also have to be talking about, but securing the border is something that they say really is number one. They need help and they need technology.
You mentioned this is an Americans for Prosperity event and a group of
Sure.
activists, lawmakers, journalists. Any
Sure.
members of the North Carolina delegation? And if so, what have they been saying?
Sure. We have representatives with us from Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson's office. They're down here. Really, it's a fact-finding trip for lots of folks. We had a lot of Texas lawmakers come and meet us because I think they were glad to see that areas of the rest of the areas of the country. We have representatives with us from Nevada, Utah, North Carolina, Virginia, all in here to say, okay, why is this important to our states at home? And those lawmakers are saying, look, we don't care if you're Republican, if you're Democrat, if you're an American, this humanitarian crisis has to reach you because it's not just about the people who are dying, the children that are lost. This is also bringing drugs and human trafficking into every state in the nation.
Based on what you have seen, if someone were trying to make that trek from Mexico into the U.S., just how dangerous would it be? It doesn't look like this would be an easy task. Someone who's trying to make this illegal crossing seems like taking their lives into their own hands.
Oh, no question about it. It's not just the terrain. There's rattlesnakes. There's signs, looking out for alligators everywhere. But I think the biggest threat to their safety truly is the drug cartels. No one crosses that river without the drug cartels' permission. And the drug cartels, the Border Patrol said that the drug cartels have a sentinel with a cell phone about every half mile along the border. I mean, we don't even have that on the other side. And they are marking when people try to cross. If they don't make it, they'll be killed. And so no one crosses without the drug cartel's permission. One of the notes that they really told us that struck me was in 2023, we're only in April, tons of Chinese nationals coming across the border. So they're seeing more and more adult males and female adults in their 20s and 30s, but they've had 1,000% increase in Chinese nationals being apprehended coming across.
Wow. My guess is after seeing this and hearing what you've heard, you agree with those who say this system is broken and definitely needs some fixes.
I do. And I really think that one of the things that we have to view this as is the humanitarian crisis that it is, that the Border Patrol agents, the number of Border Patrol agents in Texas is about the same as the number of cops in New York City. And that is one of the things that they have. They just don't have the manpower. They don't have the resources. And they want to know that the rest of the country cares and is watching.
You, of course, are editor-in-chief of Carolina Journal. Will we be reading some of your exploits when you get back to Raleigh and have
Absolutely.
a chance to write them up?
For sure. I'm going to be covering this. I'm going to be actually writing a column about this because it really, this issue with the children and the humanitarian piece of it has struck my heart. But I'll also be sharing some of the information that we've gotten with Border Patrol agents and some of those who are talking about immigration policy and some of the fixes we really need to make.
Any final thoughts before we let you get back to your trip?
Absolutely. Our next stop is going to be at Catholic Charities. It's a group that is responsible for and is taking on the mission of treating those who just are coming across not having eaten in 3 days. With children, it's almost entirely women and children in this facility. So we're headed there now, and we're going to learn more about how these groups, these NGOs, are stepping in to fill some of the gap.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you for the work that you're doing. An excellent report. We look forward to hearing more about your trip to the border. Donna King is editor-in-chief of Carolina Journal. Thanks, Donna.
Thank you, Mitch.